Hello! Today, we're going to be talking about how to lead properly in VGC so that you can start your games in better positions. Let's get right into it. Okay, so the first thing I want you to understand is that the first turn of the game is not the first turn of the game. Alright, the most important turn of the game is team preview, or turn 0, as I like to think about it, okay? You need to be in that killer mentality, like the game is started as soon as you get the team sheet, as soon as you get to team preview, okay? And the first thing that we need to think about before we know what we're leading is we have to know what Pokemon we're bringing. And the way you do that is by matchup counting. So let's see. In this team here, we have two main win conditions, right? Sweeping with Palafin, sweeping with Goldango. So the first thing I'm doing is counting the matchups. Okay, Palafin, negative into Kilowattrel, -1, neutral into Garchomp, neutral into Weezing, positive into Incineroar, +1. Okay, it's +1 into Gardevoir because it has very low physical defense and is always pinned by Jet Punch, and is neutral into Corviknight. So we see that Palafin here is +1 into our opponent's team. And you would do that for each of your Pokemon, and you do that for each of your opponent's Pokemon. And generally, the 4 with the highest score are the 4 that you're going to bring, or the 4 that you should consider your opponent bringing the most. Now, the only time that you want to bring a Pokemon with a low score is when you have a Pokemon that is your only one that beats something that they have that's good. So, say I have a Rillaboom, and they have 5 grass resists, but they have a Primarina, and their Primarina is really good into my team, and Rillaboom is the only thing that counters it. Guess what? You have to bring the Rillaboom and find a way to weave it in against their Primarina. Okay, cool. So the simplest kind of lead scenario is when one player has a dominant strategy. Now, what does that mean? Dominant strategy means that one player has a lead that they can go with that is going to give them a positive outcome more or less no matter what the opponent goes with. So when I look at my opponent's team, what's their dominant strategy? What's the easiest way to win? Okay, it's pretty simple. They have a fast Earthquake user, Garchomp, and as you look at my team, I have no ground immunities. So the easiest way for them to win is just Tailwind Earthquake, okay? And so I have to cover for that. I have to not get blown off the board immediately because they have the dominant strategy. So what can we do to combat that? Well, we have Alolan Ninetales that's positive into Garchomp and positive into the Kilowattrel, who wants to set up Tailwind for the Garchomp. So I know I probably have to lead Ninetales if I don't want to lose immediately to a Garchomp sweep. So now that we have an idea of what 4 Pokemon we're bringing and what 4 Pokemon our opponent's bringing, how do we know what to lead? The thing I ask first is who has the most immediate pressure? Who has the initiative? And that can be answered by who's moving first, who has the fastest fake out, who has the fastest Pokemon. Because moving first in VGC is the most important thing. If I'm moving before my opponent, if I knock them out before they attack, I don't get attacked, my Pokemon live, their Pokemon faint, I win. Easy, right? But when we look at my opponent's team, we see we both have Incineroar, we both have fake out. No real way to tell which one is faster until we actually get into the game, but they have Kilowattrel, which is the fastest Pokemon in this battle, and they have Tailwind, so that is what we have to respect the most. Okay, so we know one of the Pokemon we have to lead. Next thing we need to do is we need to cover for that Pokemon's weaknesses. Okay, so I'm asking, what does Ninetales lose to? Well, 2 main things on my opponent's team, really 3. It's the Incineroar, and it's the Corviknight, and also the Weezing, kind of, in this situation. It's not pleasant for us to deal with. So, what beats most of those guys? Well, if we go with Palafin, which is one of our main conditions, Palafin is positive into Incineroar, it's neutral into Corviknight, and it can still transform without having its ability against the Weezing, okay? So when I'm looking at this, I think that Palafin Ninetales is going to be the most optimal thing. Now, they could go with Incineroar plus Weezing. That would beat Palafin Ninetales, because they can intimidate the Palafin so that I can't pick up a KO right away, and then they're threatening Flare Blitz plus Sludge Bomb onto Ninetales. Okay, so I could lead with Palafin plus Incineroar to have something that's neutral against their Incineroar plus Weezing, but you have to be careful. You have to be careful because your opponent has a brain, you see, so they are going to try and beat your best lead, and as we can see, they have Kilowattrel, which has competitive. If I lead with Incineroar, I'm going to give their Kilowattrel a +2 boost, and I don't really know how my opponent wants to play this, because this is my first time playing them. This is a random ladder game. I don't really know what their play style is. I don't really know how they want to play, so I think game 1, or in a best of 1, I am always going to lead Palafin Ninetales going into this. Okay, so say we're not playing a best of one. Say it is a best of three. How do you make adjustments? How do you lead game two, game three of a best of three? Okay, well, it's simple. You're going to have a flowchart where you ask two questions. One, did my lead work? If yes, do they have a way to stop it? If no, lead the same thing. If you have the dominant strategy, if you have the pressure, lead it and force them to respect it. And if they can't respect it, keep leading it. Same thing from your opponent's point of view. Did their lead work? If yes, you need to come up with a way to respect it, okay? Number two is if one player's lead worked and they can adjust, okay, then we need to think about their adjustment, and this is how you 2-0 in best of threes, all right, is you counter adjust to their adjustment. So game one, they're going to go with their most immediate pressure, most likely, and they're going to force you to respect it, okay? So I can't go Palafin Incineroar game one because they're most likely going to lead with Kilowattrel, but don't just lead the same thing if they have a way to punish what you led. And the way they punish Palafin Ninetales is with Incineroar Wheezing. So game two is when you go with Palafin Incineroar. Now, if it gets to a game three, this is where you have to kind of use your better intuition and ask yourself, okay, how did these last two games go? Do they feel confident in what they went with game one, or do they like the adjustments they made game two? And this is where you kind of have to put your big boy pants on, okay, and be the better player. Okay, so let's look at what actually happened in this set. So, as we said, they're going to lead with their most immediate pressure, Kilowattrel Garchomp, and we are going to lead with Palafin Ninetales. Now, you can't just think about the result. You can't think about how the game went, okay? You have to think about who won the lead. And in this game, we won the lead because they do not have a way to KO Ninetales. Ninetales is positive into both of them, and so they're on the back foot. They have to find a way out. And the reason I'm setting it up like this is because, as you'll see, what happens in the game is they protect Garchomp, they go for Discharge to get some chip on a Ninetales, and they get the paralysis into full paralysis. Oof. Okay. So our lead worked. That's what's important to understand, is our lead worked even though we lost turn one, okay? This is going to be important going forward. So now we're in game two, and this is where I make a mistake in this particular set, okay? I think, oh, they think that their lead worked because they won turn one and they won the game, so I'm just going to lead the same thing to catch Kilowattrel Garchomp. But, like I said earlier, we have to remember, our opponents have brains too. I know, sometimes it feels like they don't, but they do, believe it or not. So, here we go. They lead, what do you know? Incineroar Wheezing into my Palafin and Ninetales. So don't make this mistake, okay? Even if the game goes in their favor, we're not looking at who won and who lost, okay? We're looking at what happened on the lead. Did we win the lead? You have to be process-oriented, not outcome-oriented. Very important. So, in conclusion, we need to matchup count to figure out which Pokemon we're bringing and which Pokemon our opponent's bringing. Then, we need to decide, okay, who has the dominant pressure. If we have it, we lead it. If they have it, we better cover for it. And then, we ask about the adjustments, okay? If they can adjust, they will, so think about counter adjustments you can make. And that, in a nutshell, is how you lead properly in VGC. There's a lot of different ways you can play, a lot of different teams, right? If you have a hard Trick Room team, you're thinking, how do I get up Trick Room? If you have a hyper offense team, it's different than how you play a balanced team. I can't give you everything, okay? But this is a good way to get you started so that you can have your games in better positions so that you can then get hacked out and blunder your way to a loss. Thank you for watching.